Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest in the ADGM webcast series for 2020. This is the latest in our series of webinars where we address a number of the important topics that are relevant to people in these really challenging times. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule through the various different channels through which we're broadcasting this. The webinar series so far has aimed to address a number of the key topics which have been on people's minds through these challenging times. But we started off with a session on employment law, we've covered in-country value, we've looked at the recovery of organizations post the COVID challenges, we've addressed the challenges of corporate debt restructuring. This is the next in that session, which looks at helping businesses to export and be more resilient through these difficult times. I'm joined today by Zishan Iqbal and Natasha Saleh, who are from Etihad Credit, Insurance, and ADEX, the Abu Dhabi Export Office. And what we'd like to do today is to address the service offerings of both of these organizations and to talk you through some of the ways in which you as organizations can access these services. Putting this in context a little bit, this is, it's been important that we support organizations who want to do business through these challenging times. Within ADGM, we've provided a number of support measures for new organizations, providing firms that wish to move into ADGM with support through 100% waivers on continuation of businesses from one jurisdiction to another, 50% reduction on incorporation fees for new companies and new partnerships. Commercial license renewals, we've waived the fees for those firms, and a range of further support measures as well. You can find all of those details on our website. It's important that we provide a full ecosystem to support the financial businesses and the corporates that call ADGM home, and also extend the services that we can offer into those people across the rest of the Emirates. Now, why export? This may seem counterintuitive to many of you who are looking at the challenges of staying afloat in these important times. But from our perspective, it's extremely important to think about the future and to think about how we drive recovery as things start to change. And it will be a new normal. By way of supporting that, there are a number of surveys that have really focused on this area. One of those surveys identified that firms who begin to export see a 34% increase in productivity in year one and are 59% more productive than non-exporting companies. In the US, a 3-year study of SME manufacturers who exported found that they grew by 37% at a time when those who did not export shrank by 7%. 78% of exporters said that operating internationally exposed them to new ideas and improvements in their product sets, and 70% of those organizations identified that they'd been able to build that into products and services. Now, as we go through this session today, as we've done in previous sessions, I note that we have people joining through a range of different platforms. We have people on LinkedIn, we have people on YouTube, and we have Twitter. Please note that you can submit questions to us. There will be a question and answer session at the end of this. Submit them through your platform. We'll collate them, and we'll make sure that they either get answered by us during the course of the Q&A session, or we'll pick those up that we don't get to through the course of the actual event and respond to those directly. With that in mind, I'd like to move on to inviting our friend Zishan Iqbal from Etihad Credit Insurance. Zishan is Director of Murabaha Solutions, to introduce himself and to introduce ECI. Zishan.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for joining this very important series of webinar, taking time out of their busy schedule. And I would like to thank ADGM for arranging this very important topic, addressing the topic, which is talk of the town as we speak. We're all going through challenging times, difficult times, and I think here we need to talk about how export and exporters can be resilient enough to contribute towards GDP of the country itself. My name is Zishan Iqbal. I'm the Director of Maraba Solutions at Etihad Credit Insurance. A few words on ECI. ECI is a federal ECA of UAE, 50% owned by federal and remaining 50% capital owned by member Emirates. We came into existence through a cabinet resolution in 2017 and became operational from February 2018. So our main focus is, as Steve has rightly mentioned, that in difficult times, 37% of exporters tend to grow, while the corporates which are not exporting, they tend to go down. And 78% of exporters says that the export helped them in getting new ideas, being innovative. I think that's exactly the reason ECI was created, to diversify and support non-oil exports of UAE. I think if I can summarize the support in one word, that we are there to support to enhance the global competitiveness of UAE exporter. That let alone exporter, we will also help domestic player to export. So our products are specifically focused on to shift your focus from collection and recovery and focus on business development and expansion of business. So to help penetrate new markets, we want to bring this confidence in the local financial ecosystem that you have a federal government entity supporting you, supporting your business endeavors, helping you to export more, discover new markets, and our risk underwriting team is at your disposal, and we can actually share pre-underwritten buyers, which will help domestic players to export more. Now, coming back to the products and services which we offer, we have a complete product suite of regular or standard ECAs. ECAs stand for Export Credit Agencies. These are government institutions which are very much into action in European countries. The first ECA was established in the UK 100 years ago. So we are in the ECA world, we are a new kid on the block, but with the loads of experience of the management team from relevant industries, we are sure and committed to contribute towards GDP of UAE. Now I would request my colleague from ADEX, Natasha, to introduce herself. Over to you, Natasha, please.
Thanks, Zishan. Thank you, Steve. First and foremost, I would like to thank ADGM team for uniting us today at this forum. I would also like to thank ADGM members who are attending this webinar for taking time out of their busy schedule to meet with us today. Today, I hope that all ADGM members leave knowing that ADEX, along with ADGM and ECI, are here to support their businesses based in UAE to achieve growth and global reach. My name is Natasha Saleh, and I'm the project manager with Abu Dhabi Exports Office. Let me just give you a small brief on who Abu Dhabi Export Office is and what do we do. Abu Dhabi Export Office, also known as ADEX, was established by Abu Dhabi Fund for Development as an initiative from Government of Abu Dhabi in September 2019. So as you can see, we are a very new entrant to the market. We were created in order to ensure sustainability and growth of UAE businesses. Today, through this webinar, I would like to reiterate our commitment towards the UAE business community that our aim is to work with you on successfully achieving your growth from Abu Dhabi and the United Arab Emirates, whether it is to the regional market or to the other parts of the global market sector. We are here to mitigate the non-payment risk and delayed payment risk you may face with regards to the international transaction. We want to partner with you in order to enhance your competitiveness in international markets and opening markets you may not have considered in the past. All this through our buyer's credit facility, which provides you with the comfort towards your receivables without taking on additional debt burden. I would like to give you a small brief on the products that we are offering. We have two main lines of facilities. One is direct financing and the other one is indirect financing. Under the direct financing, we offer loans and guarantees. Direct loans are offered to overseas buyers for purchase of UAE goods and services. This will allow them to avail facilities at competitive terms. So through this product, we are not only removing the debt burden from you, the exporter, but we are also providing your buyer competitive terms that otherwise they may not have received from their own market. And for you, the exporter, what you get ensured is that your payment will be coming directly against this particular loan from an Abu Dhabi-based government entity. The terms are very simple. We finance up to 90% of the transaction. We fund tenors up to 15 years, depends on the type of transaction. And this is a non-revolving type of transaction loan. We also have a guarantee line. Under the guarantee line is more or less the same as what is the same as the loan. The only difference being is instead of ADEX being the financier or the lending bank, the financier is a financial institution. And your money, instead of coming from ADEX, will be coming from a financial institution. The financial institution will be providing the loan to that particular buyer based on the guarantee offered by ADEX covering that particular buyer. And this is more or less, the terms are exactly the same as what the loan product is. We have one other line of facility, and that is the indirect export facility, whereby lines of credit are established with overseas banks to support re-lending requirement for their customer base, subject to there being a UAE export transaction involved. This line was designed in order to meet requirement of smaller transaction, whereby transactions as small as USD 100,000 can be accommodated, and financing can reach up to 100%. This way, we are trying to encourage banks to extend facilities to their customers who have trade with UAE. Yes, and I forgot one thing. Under the direct loan and guarantee, the minimum transaction value is about $3 million. Steve, I'll return back to you now.
Thank you, Natasha. Zishan, if I can return to you and run through a couple of the things that we talked about before in a little bit more detail. Natasha talked about some of the products that ADEX are providing. Maybe you can start us off by just drilling a little bit more down beyond the export credit guarantee into the types of products and services that you're providing for your clients.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, and thanks, Natasha, for giving this brief intro. I think it's a perfect partnership, and the timing, the challenging time we're going through, it becomes more evident, how you can protect your payment, and that's the confidence, that level of confidence we want to play. So ECAs tend to play a role of a stabilizer, right? So we are here to stabilize the economy. We are here to stabilize the unexpected shocks we are going through, and we are here to accelerate that pace of stabilizing and accelerate the recovery process. And I think that was the whole idea of this webinar today we are talking about. So in terms of product and services, we have divided our support into three segments. One are exporters, banks, and investors. And then I think briefly I can touch upon on project finance and long and medium term transactions as well, where globally ECAs are expected to play an important role. So for us, I think if you talk about eligibility, so any transaction, any export deal, any project, or any medium and long-term transaction which is contributing towards GDP of UAE, that is eligible for our coverage. So having said that, we are not limiting ourselves to export only. As Natasha briefly touched upon, we have multiple structures which we can present on board. We can provide support to buyer's credit structure. We are open to look at supplier credit structure, factoring, receivable finance, SME Protect, political risk insurance, and project finance. So we have a complete product suite available based on the requirements. If you look at the trade corridors of UAE, 59% of exports are destined toward Asia. That is the existing, partner composition. And if you look at individual partner, I think top three are basically Saudi Arabia, Oman, India, and China. So I think that's exactly the trade corridor mix as we speak today. And that also gives us a direction of where we have a potential to room to grow forward. Having said that, we have created an ECI, a good financial ecosystem, I would say, not stereotyping ecosystem. So we have our partner banks, we have federal or Abu Dhabi Export Fund, ADEX as our partner, a funding partner. So we have ECAs, which we have partnered with. We have Chamber of Commerce's who are helping us, and we have ADGM and institutions like yourself. So I think we are perfectly placed to play that role of stabilizer and then accelerator. In terms of our support towards domestic market, our primary focus, although is on export, but we cannot shy away in supporting the domestic sales as well. So we need to look at on the portfolio basis, taking a holistic approach. So having said that, you never know that these domestic players will become exporters tomorrow. So our risk underwriting team has a very interesting proposition that what we can do is that we can provide pre-underwritten names to the exporters, and they can start talking to them, to these names as a starting point and become an exporter tomorrow. Because two very important bloodlines of economy are the exports and FDI flows. And looking at FDI flows, International Monetary Fund, FDI flows expected to remain depressed, but strangely, UAE has outperformed the neighboring region itself. We have also certain products where we have political risk insurance product to protect UAE investors going abroad. So I think we are very much there, and we look forward to partner with ADEX on buyer's credit structure to start with. And I think that this partnership will bring a one-package solutions for the corporates who are looking forward to export more, to penetrate into new markets and enhancing thus the global competitiveness of the exporter. So I think that's the message we want to bring it to the table.
Thank you. So there's a wide range of different solution types that you've described there. You also talked about the destination markets for a lot of the UAE exports. I noticed that we've got people on from as far afield as the African continent and Europe as well. Do you limit the markets which you'll cover in terms of export credit guarantees, or are you pretty flexible?
We are pretty much flexible, and I think it's important to mention that our chairman of the board is His Excellency Minister of Finance, Federal Minister of Finance, and deputy chairman is His Excellency Minister of Economy. So having these two distinguished excellencies on the board, our directions are directly coming from the federal strategy of the country itself. So as far as these countries are preferred partners for the country itself, we are more than happy to support. So having said that, we do not want to expose ourselves unnecessarily to the risky environment, because the business model which we are working on is a partnership model. So partnership is a way to grow in UAE. So we do not want to subsidize the public funding, and we don't want to overexpose public funding. So we have to create that balance that we are playing our developmental role, thus again protecting the capital investment as well of the country itself. So we are governed by the policies given to us through these ministries and by the countries. But I just wanted to add one more thing here, that our risk appetite will be better and directed towards UAE preferred partnerships as well. So having said that, we are not here to compete with the local market or with the international players or private credit insurance players, but we are here to complement them. And that's why I think it's important to mention our very unique solution, which we are ready to bring on the table, is a top-up solution. So if the corporates have existing programs with their existing credit insurance players from the private market, we can top that up. And that leads me to the fact that that's exactly the level of confidence we are bringing, though the private markets are a little reluctant at this stage of time, given the challenging time we're going through. But ECI is willing to support, despite that we have seen some curtailments on the credit limits and some pushback from European markets as well.
Thank you. And I just want to pick up on one thing that you said during the course of that. You talked about domestic business as well. And we think very much of exporters and you supporting the business that they do outside the UAE. Can you say a little bit more about how you support exporters in their domestic business as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, we can't, logically speaking, and if an exporter comes to us and he has a domestic business, I mean, it will be unfair from our side to say to the exporter that we will only take export, you take domestic to somebody else. So, as a portfolio, we are ready to support export as well as domestic, but we would prefer to have a balance of export and domestic business. I mean, the situation we want to not to arrive at, that whether 90% domestic and 10% exports. We can look at that. We're not saying that we will not be able to support. We can look at that as far as it is contributing towards GDP. So in terms of flexibility, we are very flexible, and we are more than happy to provide support to domestic business. And at the expense of repeating, I want to reiterate that you never know that these exporters will become, these domestic players will become exporters tomorrow.
Very, very good. Thank you for that. I'm going to take a break and return to Natasha in a moment and pick up on some of the things that she talked about, and we'll come back together and pick up on some of the questions. Just want to remind people that are participating in the webinar through the various different channels, through YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, that you can submit questions to us for the panel, and we'll pick those up at the end of the session or come back to them for those that we don't get after the session is concluded. So on that basis, thank you for now, Zishan. I'm going to return to Natasha. We'll pick up on a few things with her, and then we'll come back for Q&A afterwards. Thank you. Natasha, welcome back. Thank you for that great overview at the start of this session. And one of the things that's clear to me is that the advantage that ADEX has of being a new kid on the block is, in many ways, its dynamism, its willingness to innovate, and its real encouragement for people to think of things that are a little outside the box. You talked about the core product set through the direct loans, through the guarantees, through the indirect export lending as well. Perhaps you can give us a few examples of the ways in which ADEX is perhaps accelerating the things that it's planned to do and bring in new things to the market, and a few examples of the way in which you've supported innovation and innovative business models.
Well, Steve, innovation and flexibility is key to any new entrant. And being, as you said, the new kid on the block, we strive to look for ways to advance our mandate in a way that will support the UAE business. By this, I mean, whenever we design a new product line or a process, we do so by listening to our customers and our exporter and what their needs and wants are, and apply the best practices that are available at that point in time. We take into account the market conditions, the outlook for the market, and we create a product or a process that will best suit our exporters or our business requirement. Let me give you an example. When we first started Abu Dhabi Exports Office, we did that like with any other company. We planned the next 5 to 7 years on how we will be adding new products and new services in a phased manner and everything. It looked perfect on paper. But then plans change as we go about, and the current market situation changed drastically as we launched. So we initially started our export criteria with UAE national companies, and free zone entities or foreign entities were in planning stage for the next phase. Now, taking our current market conditions, we are now expediting that process to include transactions involving free zone companies, which was already in our planning stage. The transactions are looked at from various angles, such as how it would contribute to the UAE economy, employment, amortization, involvement of the UAE manufacturing sector, the business services, and various other aspects. We also look at times, it's not only the value addition in terms of how much UAE is producing, how many companies in UAE are given business. A lot of times you might give businesses to a number of SME companies, and that in itself holds weight rather than the actual value of contribution. What we need to ensure over here that ADEX's prime focus is the UAE business and their needs and requirements in order to assist growth. This is why we included something called as URC, which are the UAE related company as a UAE exporter. What's a URC? A URC is a company based overseas, which has a minimum of 30% or more UAE ownership. And we consider this company that is based overseas as an exporter. So no longer is the exporter only based in UAE. The exporter, as long as it has 30% or more UAE ownership, is based overseas. Their export, we can also fund the buyers for their particular exports. And we have also started discussion with ADGM on a number of transactions, on a number of clients, on seeing how we can have the value addition that is done for UAE incorporated in order to fund their buyers as well. We don't only look at ADGM members as an exporter. We also want to look at them as buyers. Now, these companies have got companies based overseas. When these overseas companies procure anything from UAE, we want to look at them as buyers of the UAE goods and service. So not only is the ADGM member companies and their group is given facility as an exporter, it's also given facilities as an importer. We have also started discussion with ADGM on their bank members, where we are currently devising a mechanism through which we want to provide indirect facilities to banks whose rep offices are in ADGM to avail lines of credit in order to encourage the export transaction. Now, taking current market condition, my friend Zishan was sitting and talking about the collaborations that we are sitting and doing together. We are currently in very early stages of discussion on certain new products that we want to add that will go a little different from the standard buyer's credit facility. And hopefully within a few months' time, we would be able to give more details on same. So these are a few of the examples how ADEX is trying to innovate and be flexible to adapt to changes in the current market condition. Steve?
Thank you. And I know we only inked the MOU between our two organizations earlier on this week, but you know, it's great to see that this is already turning into concrete action that's being put in place to support Abu Dhabi institutions in their international efforts, and that includes and extends to people that are doing business in ADGM. So we're delighted by that. Thank you. One of the things I just wanted to comment on, really, from what you said, is that it's an extremely difficult time for a lot of organizations, and at this point, cash flow is king. And I think that anything that's being done to support the certainty and speed of cash flow, particularly for the smaller firms, but not exclusively for the smaller firms, has to be good for the survival and growth of businesses. And you know, your role in that, I think, is extremely important. Yeah, we're going to come on in the next session. Is there anything you'd like to add before I move forward?
No, all what I want to say over here is that when I talked about our products and service, I just wanted to give a few terms and conditions that we sit and we work under. Yep, Number one, we support goods and services that have a UAE origin. Now, taking foreign companies into consideration, we want to see how we are going to develop that further. We do not entertain transactions pertaining to crude oil, but petrochemicals are included. Our financing is in dirham and dollar. We look at buyers we look at the eligibility criteria. The buyers need to meet the minimum eligibility criteria. By this, I mean that we have to have, Zishan touched upon, is that to study the risk in a proper manner. Our buyers could be anybody from government entity to state-owned entities to private entities. And they could range from markets from OECD ratings of 0 to 6, which is a very wide range. That covers over 140 countries around the world. So this is just a brief on some of the terms and conditions I think I forgot to add in at the beginning.
Oh, thank you very much. What I'm going to do now is move on to the Q&A side of things. I think there's a few interesting things coming through that we'll want to pick up on during Q&A. So we'll go back to the three of us now and go into the Q&A side of the session. Thank you. Thanks, and Sasha. Welcome back, both of you, and I'm conscious that I'm hiding in the shadows as a result of the setting sun here in Abu Dhabi. For those of you that are not here, it's wonderful to see it set, but maybe I should have drawn the curtains. I apologise for that. Both of you, thank you very much for the overview that you gave. And what I took away from that session is that there is a real and genuine interest in supporting the growth of export business and support of those businesses, both large and small, that are looking to take advantage of a crisis in many ways. It's at times that when people can really support the additional business flows, that they will be the ones who survive and thrive as a result of the activities that they undertake now. Having heard about all the things that you do, I'm sure we've got many people on the line who are keen to be able to take advantage of this. Maybe I can ask each of you to just say a little bit about the practical steps of this. Yeah, you've talked about various different products and services, Natasha, that are available through ADEX. If I want to take advantage of those, what do I do next? Where do I go? Who do I speak to?
Okay, from my days in banking, I know that the most cumbersome process is the due diligence. And what we do in ADEX is we take the whole responsibility of doing the full financial due diligence in terms of the financial capability and the repayment capacity of that particular buyer. What we do is we do the study and we leave the exporter to sit and concentrate on the technical aspects of a particular transaction, to focus on that, to focus on how they are going to deliver. I'll just go through a little bit of technicality like you wanted. We have a very simple approval, two simple approval steps. The first one is the pre-assessment side of the transaction, which we call the consultation. During this stage, we get very basic information on this transaction and match it with the broad guidelines that are available. If it fits, we then move on to the next step, by which we go directly into discussion with the overseas buyers to provide us with full information disclosure and enhanced due diligence is carried out, mainly covering the buyer's risk. The process is very simple. You can either send us an email on adex@adfd.ae or just go to our website page where we have a contact us and we would get back to you on that particular matter.
Simple as that.
Yes.
Perfect. Zishan, we have a question which I'd like to combine with this for you as well, because I know you've got some particular solutions around this. Mita asks, what are some of the solutions that are available to SME exporters? So I think maybe if you want to pick that one up and also combine that with, if I want to come to ECI, how do I engage with you and interact? Then we can probably kill two birds with one stone.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for this very important topic. SME is, as we have seen in the Western world as well, is a backbone of the economy. And I think in UAE, it's more than anybody thought. And I want to share with you a very interesting, customer voice project, which we have undertaken before we launch these products and services. And surprisingly, we have seen that for medium and large size corporates, less than 3% are familiar with what trade credit insurance is. And for SMEs, it further goes down less than 1% for certain reasons. So our target and our objective is twofold. One is to create that awareness of trade credit insurance as a concept in the local market and then sell it. So, I mean, we don't want to oversell it, and that's how our partnership with banks and ADEX will be very fruitful to give this confidence to clients that there is a genuine support available. Having said that, SME is very important for us, and our support is available to SMEs in two forms. One is that we have launched a very specific product for very small companies. I would say SME and micro as well, which is called Sme Protect. It's a very interesting, very simple over-the-counter policy that will help SMEs to grow and then to penetrate to new markets, but it is limited to 5 or 6 overseas buyers. So that product is available. And then once number of buyers matures enough, then we go into whole turnover. So we have a couple of, for real SMEs, as per the definition of UAE government and central bank, where the turnover should be more than a certain threshold and number of employees are more. For that, we have multiple options. So we have whole turnover cover, where we will insure all open account sales of that company. We have excess of loss. So we will only cover a loss when that loss exceeds up to a certain threshold. This product offers to companies who have good, robust internal credit management system, and then they are ready to pay only premium for a loss which is exceeding up to a certain threshold. Then we have single risk and single buyer cover as well. Our product is comprehensive. So we cover commercial risk as well as political risk. Commercial risk includes protracted default, insolvency, and bankruptcy. And political risk, there are 3 standard risks. Convertibility risk, which is called exchange transfer restrictions, then civil disturbance and war, and then nationalization and expropriation. Additional 2 political risks can be classified as breach of contract and non-honoring of sovereign obligations. These 2 have certain subjectivities for eligibility perspective. So having said that, just coming back to the question raised, we are very, very flexible in terms of providing support to SME. I mean, we do not have, as we speak, any minimum ticket size which we can support, but in terms of cost, so trade credit insurance should make commercial sense for the company as well as for us as well, right? So we are very, very committed and very interested to support SME segment, which is considered a very integral part of the commercial landscape or industrial and business landscape of UAE, and we are more than happy to support. In terms of operational steps, we are envisaging a complete digital solution. So we have our website, which is being revamped as we speak. This is an old website, but we have to live with it for the time being. So this is being developed now, but our online application form is available on the website. So you go online, click on that online application form. As soon as you fill it, this is for corporates as well as for banks. As soon as you fill that application form, we will receive it and we will immediately come back to you. The process, the way it works is that after receiving the application, we will look at the exposure and the spread. We'll issue a non-binding indicative term sheet. And then at the same time, we will start assessing the buyers. But this is more or less a standard process with certain subjectivities. But I think more importantly, what we want to achieve is that to give this confidence to SME, large corporates, GREs, and multinationals that there is a genuine support available from federal government as well as Abu Dhabi Export Fund.
Thank you. So my summary would be that what we're trying to do, particularly for SMEs, is to allow them to focus on their core business and do the things that they do well. Often SMEs don't have the full depth of the risk analysis and recovery capability that some of the larger corporations would do, and we help to fill that gap through the products and services that we offer. And that both of you can access your services and products directly through the electronic means available to them through the websites or directly by email?
I think
So,
an important message from my side to CFOs as well as to the CEO of companies as well, that, I mean, do not look at trade credit insurance as an additional cost, because you have a provision, a bad debt provision. And I think it is important to mention that one small loss for SMEs can wipe out the profit of next coming years. And in comparison to the premium which they pay or cost of trade credit insurance, they can reduce the bad debt provision. So it's an excellent balance sheet management and protection tool as well. So you can balance it off, you can offset the benefits you get from trade credit insurance to the cost. So if you do the cost benefit analysis, I think it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely, thank you, good point. I'm going to ask you to step away from the product for a second. We've got a number of people that want to pick your brains as experienced market practitioners here, so I'm going to combine a couple of questions. Natasha, you're smiling now, you may not when I come to you with the questions, but combining questions from Gina and Ali in particular, talking about the export markets as a whole, and adding my little spin to it as well. I mean, we see news constantly about the movement towards domestication of markets, the breakdown of some of the supply chains that we've seen as a result of the COVID crisis, along with the reapplication of tariffs and things like this through some of the international moves that we've seen. Ali asks, are certain goods and product categories going to see more favorable export markets, do you think, versus others? And Gina adds, given the current situation, what are your views on the overall export market? Any trends on where we'll be headed?
Me. Okay. With regards to, with regards to the export markets, the thing is, at ADEX, we look at all exports and we look at it favorably, be that construction, infrastructure project that our UAE companies are taking overseas, be it UAE manufactured goods, or be it services where UAE companies are going in as advisors, consultants, be that whatever it is. You talked about the disruption of the supply chain. And I believe that the export market has got potential, and we have to have hope for future. Things are starting to get into a little bit of normalcy now. People are starting to learn how to live and adapt with the current situation. There is always an opportunity. The disruption of supply chain, I don't necessarily see it as a negative thing for UAE economy. I look at it as a wake-up call for us to diversify our supply chain market, for us to sit and concentrate more on import substitute and use that import substitute to potentially go into overseas markets with as our export. Like us, every other market in the world will be looking now at alternative supply chain, and this is where we can come in. We are very active in areas like building material, construction, certain consumable goods, and we want to concentrate more on those particular sectors and really work hard in order to grab markets that were earlier held by other people.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point, and we're starting to see a regionalization of supply chains rather than globalization of supply chains, perhaps, and playing an important part in that. Ahmed's asked us two interesting questions. The first I'm going to bring to Zishan, and then the second is specifically for you, Natasha. For you, Zishan, what are both ACI and ADEX's appetites towards high-risk countries and markets such as Bangladesh? And we touched on this a little bit before, but maybe be a little specific around those high-risk countries. I know you touched on it in your overview.
We are very interested, I would say, but that is, with certain subjectivity. So just to give a clear message, our objective is not to make money. Our objective is not to earn premium. Our objective is to support UAE businesses and export, to grow and support and enhance their global competitiveness. So as far as these markets are from risk-wise acceptable to us, we are more than happy to support. And particularly for Asian markets where we see a lot of exports emanating from UAE, we are very interested to look at. The second part of the question was that how both ECI and ADEX appetite, the way it works. So the way it works is that Natasha briefly touched upon the operational angle that once we receive the transaction through website or our sources, we will do due diligence on the obligor. So I think here there's a slight difference where ADEX will do the due diligence on the exporter as well as on the buyer, but we do a very detailed due diligence on the obligor itself, the buyer in outside countries. And I think it's important to mention that any company who becomes a client or a customer of ECI, we have an online database of 360 million buyers, across the globe. So that means that you are getting an immense access to a huge database. And interesting factor is that any of the buyer you are willing to deal with, or you're going to deal with, or you're potentially speaking to, if that has defaulted anywhere in the world, that will be immediately notified to you. And that is the proposition, and that is the value we're bringing on the table itself. So it's not only a risk mitigation tool, but I think most importantly, information is the key as well. And also I wanted to touch upon on the terms of trade. So if you look at the global competitiveness index, we are seeing the international trade shying away from letters of credit, from advance payments. So if you insist as a corporate to have LC, to have the advance payment, you are limiting yourself. So if you want to expand, if you want to grow, you have to offer flexible credit terms. But flexible credit terms with the right risk mitigation support, potentially from ECI, and then financed by ADEX, that's a perfect business scenario which CEOs and CFOs needs to develop. So that will not only help to mitigate your existing risk, but it will help you, the product itself can help you in multiple ways to expand, to offer flexible credit terms. So I'm sure that if you do a business comparison analysis, that if I want to shift from an LC base to open account, my customer existing sales might be doubled. So it's a business case.
So you're looking at providing not just the credit guarantee, but you're also providing information which supports good commercial decision making, and that would include high-risk countries, including the likes of Bangladesh. Natasha, the same for ADEX, or do you have a different?
No, more or less exactly the same. More or less exactly the same. I want to add over here. Every market is looked at on its own merit. It's not only the market. We look at the market, and then we look at the obligor, like Zishan said, in that particular market. A government would be treated very differently from a state-owned entity, would be treated very differently from a privately owned company. So each one is looked at on its own merit. And again, when we have support of entities such as ECI, it only increases our risk appetite in order, not that we would take the risk, no, the risk would be taken regardless because we have our own due diligence that we need to follow. But our appetite, our transaction size, we might be bolder in the way we go and approach that particular market when we have supports.
Thank you. And we talked at the start of this Q&A about processes, practical steps. Ahmed's other question, and it's directed particularly to ADEX, is around the expected TAT to fully approve a transaction in ADEX, given that we're in a dynamic market. And we talk about the important steps of due diligence and things like that. Does that mean that this is a lengthy process, or is this something that we can do in a relatively short turnaround?
No, not necessarily a lengthy process. It actually, the turnaround time really depends on the availability of information. How cooperative is the buyer? And it's not the exporter over here, because we are taking the burden away from the UAE exporter, and we are now in direct contact with the actual buyer. How cooperative he is in providing us with information, how cooperative he is in completing all these CPs that are required. So it is that determines the turnaround time. And like we mentioned earlier, we are new. So believe me, we would be rushing to finalize a transaction, but there has to be some sort of a cooperation done from the other side in order to support us.
Zishan, I'm sure it's the same with ECI, as it is with all of us. The quality of information that you can get from both your direct customer and the obligor is going to be key to speed of decision making, I guess. And the role of your client in supporting you to get that information from the obligor, I guess, is important if turnaround times are quick. Is that how it works for you?
Of course. Information is the key, Steve, and I think I would like to mention here that we have signed a very important and key initiative. We entered into an agreement with Etihad Credit Bureau, since we are embarking the journey to include domestic cover in our portfolio. So we have actually finalized our agreement with the Etihad Credit Bureau, and on top of that, I mean, our partnership cloud consists of ECAs around the globe as well. And that includes the biggest and largest ECAs in the world, including Cynosure, SACE, UKEF, and Hermes. So I think it's important also that look at how other ECAs are introducing specific measures to sail through these challenging times. And we have seen a couple of European ECAs introducing some sizable packages in terms of supporting ECAs. So we are not there yet, but we are fully committed, and we can take it to the next level. I've seen a question that is a database of defaulters available on a digital platform. I think for that, you have to become a client, right? So once you become a client, definitely you will have access to that defaulters. So there's no specific separate defaulter database, but if you are going to enter a client name in the database, and if that client has defaulted anywhere in the world, immediately the red flag will come in.
Thank you. I think you touched on that previously. Kathleen asks a question which is actually one I was going to ask from a practical experience that I've had as well. If a foreign company has a company in the UAE, then uses it as a hub to export to a third country, are they eligible to work with you? So, I've got some examples of, for example, a manufacturer in one country that has value-added services provided by a UAE entity, and that is then re-exported to a third country. Would that be eligible for either of your businesses or both of your businesses?
Well, Steve, with me, I touched upon something called as the UAE related company. Yes. And the UAE related, if it falls within the criteria of UAE related company, then yes. If the export is happening from a third country, which is considered as a UAE related company, then the exports of that company is also included as an eligible transaction under our portfolio. Now,
it's a little, sorry to interrupt you, Natasha, but I think this one's a little different. If a foreign company has a subsidiary here, it's not necessarily a UAE owned or partly UAE owned company, but it's importing, maybe doing value added services and then re-exporting. Is the overseas owned company which is in the UAE eligible for your enhancement, or is that outside your remit?
If we look at the original mandate, it would have been outside. But today we are looking at it on case-to-case basis, by which we see what type of a value addition is added in UAE for that particular transaction. If there is a proper value addition in UAE, one way or the other, whether it's in service sector, whether it's manufactured good, whether it is in terms of employment, in terms of their investments in assets in UAE that has been brought in. So it's various aspects that we'll be looking at it. And once we look at these aspects, only then we would be able to determine whether this transaction would be eligible, yes or no.
Thank you. And Zishan, is that similar for you guys? It would have to have substance to the relationship in the UAE in order for it to be relevant, not just a conduit.
I think I perceive this question very interesting. And I think that is one of our objectives, to bring these large companies, to bring it to invite them to UAE and start export and re-export from here. So our mandate in this perspective, a little bit more, I would say, flexible. If you look at our articles of agreement, anything which is exported and re-exported from UAE, we can support, right? But as part of our strategy, our focus is primarily on non-oil. And as part of our strategy, the management committee internally decided to focus on a certain value addition of approximately 20%. But we are not very strict on that. For example, if a company has created 1,000 jobs here and their value addition is less than 10% or 20%, they are contributing a lot towards GDP of UAE. So having said that, we are very interested to look at these companies who are using UAE as a hub for export and re-export, and we are very, very much willing to support.
So there's a strong theme coming out through what both of you have said, which is that we are looking to do things which support UAE businesses, regardless of whether they're UAE originated businesses. As long as they're doing business in the UAE, then we are open to supporting them. This is a time when flexibility is key. The business models that we're used to are changing. So talk to us is what I hear. Reach out to us. Let's have a discussion. And I'm sure that both of you, if you can't do it, will say no quickly rather than waste people's time. And if you can do it, you'll say yes. You'll say yes in due course.
Absolutely. And that includes free zone companies as well. So we are willing to support companies which are registered in free zone. We are willing to support companies which are existing on the mainland as soon as they are exporting and re-exporting from UAE.
Very good. Both of you, we're coming up towards the time. I want to be respectful of your time and of the time of the people that have joined us today. If people still want to submit questions, I'm sure that we can pick those up from the various different sources and answer them offline. I'll ask you if you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make, just to emphasize any of the things that you said. Zishan, I'll come to you first, and then Natasha, I'll give you the last word.
All right, so it's ladies last or ladies first? So,
ladies have prime position, so they can finish.
All right.
So, Zishan, you finish.
Great. So I think from our side, I just want to give a strong message in terms of the potential support which ECI can provide. And then we are here to bring that level of confidence to the UAE exporter that government is completely, with all its positive intention, wants to support businesses to expand, to grow, and in enhancing their access to funding. So that's why our partnership with ADEX is extremely critical for businesses, that they have a package solution where they have risk mitigation and they have a financial institution supporting them. That's a very strong message we want to give. In addition to that, I think it's important to mention that we are envisioning on a journey. So we have recently, updated, and you might see in the news that our board has been appointed again, and there are some additional board members, representation from across multiple sectors, including a representative from youth. So that has been appointed very recently, I think a couple of days ago. So you might see that announcement in the news very soon. And we are thankful to our partners like yourself, ADGM, like ADEX, because that is the theme of ECI's existence, that let's grow together with partnerships, with the right partnerships and with the right time. And this is a time where resilience can be stress tested.
Thank you. And Natasha, as our most recent MOU partner, I give you the last word.
Thank you very much, Steve. All what I want everybody to leave here knowing that ADEX is keen on providing UAE exporters with the comfort of entering into a transaction, knowing that their payment will be on time from a Abu Dhabi government entity, without taking on additional debt burden. A lot of times I get customers coming up to me and telling me, well, you are giving the loan to an overseas buyer. Well, I tell them, well, no, I'm shifting the risk to the overseas buyers. I am making sure that you get your payment on time, you get your cash flow on time, whereas the risk burden is with me, with that particular buyer who's supposed to pay me the debt. And this is with limited recourse on you. So you don't need to worry if they don't pay. This is all what I have to say, and I look forward to our partnership with ADGM and with ECI. Both these partnerships, I'm happy to say that we have already started the building blocks and started to work towards achieving some sort of a concrete transactions and processes that will help the UAE export community. And together, we become stronger in order to give added value and benefit to the UAE exporter. That's all what I have to say. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much. Thank you to my guest today, Zishan Iqbal, Director of Murabaha Solutions at Etihad Credit Insurance, and Natasha Saleh, Project Manager for Abu Dhabi Export Office, ADEX. I hope you've enjoyed this session. My key message out of this is that we can't survive through contraction and limitation of business. This is a time where we have to look to the things which are going to drive the future. Export is at the very heart of that, and Abu Dhabi and the UAE are doing everything they can to support this initiative. So please get on board and contact my two guests for today if they can help you in any way. I just want to close by saying, again, thank you to you all for joining, and please feel free to join us on Wednesday at 5 o'clock when we'll have a fireside chat around the survival of businesses with a partial focus on family businesses in the post-COVID-19 environment, something that I think is going to be close to many people's hearts. Thank you all again, and I wish you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks, Natasha. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.